Well, hey, Northridge students, it is so great to have you for week 2 of our 16 word series in which we're looking at the 16 word vision of our church, Northridge Church. And we love our church and we love you. And it was so great to hear the stories of so many of the different groups starting and so many of you getting a chance to reconnect with old faces and new faces. And so, hey, whether it's your first week or second week, we're glad you're here. But last week we talked about this idea of waking up to Jesus, and we don't want to just sleepwalk through life. We want to find the things that give us purpose and meaning, and we want to live for those things. We want to be awake to them. And we kind of use the analogy of like, hey, if you've ever sat through a class and you get to the end of it and you're like, what happened? And you don't even remember. You were there, you were technically there, and you're technically present, but you weren't engaging what was going on. And we want to be people who engage our world, and more importantly, we engage our relationship with Jesus. This week, we're going to talk about the 3 other lines of our vision. And the first one being, show them his love. Show them his love. And I'm going to read 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 8, which says, love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And I love, maybe you've been to a wedding and you've heard those verses or some of those words, but it's a beautiful verse, and it brings to life the second part of our vision, which is to show them his love. And so let's think about that line. Well, to show requires action, and actually the word love there in Greek, it uses this type of love called agape love. And agape love, if you've never heard of that, it's a different type of love. In English, we have just that one word, right? So we love pizza, we love school, or we don't love school, we love our mom or dad. We use love for a lot of different areas of our life. Well, when the Bible was written, love had different connotations, which led to different types of how they defined that specific type of love. And agape love was a different kind of love. It was beyond just a feeling. It was motivated for action. It was a proactive love. But agape love was also a sacrificial love that voluntarily allows for inconvenience or discomfort or hardship if it's for the benefit of another. And it does this without expecting anything in return. And this is the love that we want you to experience first in your life. And I hope that you have a parent or a parent figure in your life that loves you and sacrificially loves you and doesn't expect anything in return. And man, we want HSM, we want MSM to be a spot where you know you're loved. No matter what you're walking through, no matter how you showed up tonight, it's important that you know, first and foremost, that you are loved by us, by Northridge Church. But let's talk about this a little bit more. Love in this verse is proactive, and Jesus was so great at this. Oftentimes you'll see Jesus and he's traveling about or he's interacting with people, and it talks about he had compassion for people. He had a feeling of love or connection for somebody. But I love Jesus because he always moves beyond just a feeling, and he moves to action. And we want to be people who, yes, we show the world our love for them and for Jesus by our actions. And so oftentimes Jesus doesn't just stop with, he had compassion or he felt love for somebody, but then he would often go and he would talk with them, or he'd teach them, or he would heal them. And this is how we want to live. This is who we want to be as a student ministry. And so I want you to ask yourself a few questions. Just a moment. I want you to pause this talk, and I want you to talk about this idea of show them his love. And I want you to think about, one, how do you feel loved? Like, is it quality time? Is it when somebody gives you their undivided attention? Is it if somebody gives you a gift, a word of affirmation? Is it, man, if somebody is like serving you or helping meet your needs? But I want you to think, how do you feel loved? Second question I want you to talk about with your group is, how do you show love? Like if you love somebody, man, what are the steps you take to show them that you love them? And then third question I want you to ask in your group is, who in your world needs to be shown love this week? Maybe it's somebody in your house party group. Maybe it's someone in your family. Maybe it's someone in one of your classes. But 3 questions, pause the video right after this and talk about this as a group. How do you feel loved? How do you show love? And who needs to be shown love this week? Next, we are going to talk about the next piece of our vision, which is tell them his truth. Tell them his truth. And I want to read 2 verses from the book of John. John 8:32 says this, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." And this is Jesus talking and teaching, and he's using this phrase. "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." And then John 14:6 says, Jesus said to them, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." And so for our third line of our church vision, it's tell them his truth. Tell them his truth. So let's break this down. Well, to tell somebody anything involves words. And so the words we use are so important. And I think we all know this. We've all had that moment where somebody has used the right word at the right time, and it's like built us up. Like, man, when you've worked hard towards something and someone notices it or highlights it or compliments us, oh man, there's no better feeling. But likewise, the wrong word at the wrong time, man, it can cut so deep. And some of us, man, we still can remember certain words or phrases, hurtful things that were said to us. And why? Because words are powerful. And so what we tell people is of the utmost importance. But maybe before we tell people is understanding what is our truth. And this is a great question. And so even now, I want you to start to think, how do you define truth? The dictionary definition is truth is that which is in accordance with fact or reality. That which is aligned with fact or reality. Well, for us, if you're a Christian, our reality is centered around Jesus being our Savior, Jesus being the most important, the primary relationship in our life, that Jesus is not only our Savior, but he's also God. And so he defines what is true for us. So if we're going to tell them his truth, then we need to know the truth of Jesus. We need to let the reality of Jesus dictate and define and be the building block, the foundation for our truth. And so, but truth as an idea is so important for you to think about and talk about. And so again, I want you to pause this video in just a minute, and I want you to ask each other these 3 questions. How do you define truth? What are some of the truths that we know from the Bible? And maybe here's a good question. Who do you trust to tell you the truth? Who do you trust to tell you the truth? Because that ultimately is going to help what defines your truth and what you tell to other people. And for myself and for our leaders, for us at Northridge, and we trust God's truth. We trust that the Bible, we trust that his word tells us the truth of who God is and how he wants us to live. But again, here's these 3 questions, and pause this video and talk about it. How would you define truth? What are some of the truths that we see in the Bible? And then who do you trust to tell you the truth? Our third point tonight, but our last line of our church vision, our 16 words, is involve them. Involve them. And James 1 verses 22 through 25 says this, "But be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in a mirror. For he observes himself, then goes away and immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed in what he does." And I love the book of James because so much of it is about not only hearing, not only feeling, but doing what God has called us to do. And our ultimate hope for your life as a student is that you don't wait till you're an adult to try to do what God has called you to do, but even now, you can take steps to be a doer of what God has called you to do. And I think we live in a day and age where especially now with Zoom and how schools function, where you watch and you listen, and then you hop on YouTube or Netflix or Hulu and you just watch. Or you're on social media, you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, and you just watch videos and you watch other people's realities and you watch other people saying things. And it's easy to just be somebody who just watches. But we want for you to be somebody who does. We want, and we think that there's so much to be learned in the doing. Christianity itself, if you only watch from afar and you only critique from your chair, but you never get involved, there's actually going to be gaps and limitations to your understanding of who Jesus was. Because Jesus didn't just watch from afar. Jesus came into our world to be involved in the messiness of relationships and the messiness and the brokenness of this world. And so God calls us to be people who are involved. And our hope for you is that you would be involved in your house party, that you would be involved in your relationship with Christ when no one's watching, but that you would be involved in our church, that you would be involved in telling others and showing others the truth and love of who Jesus is. And so last but not least, a few different questions for you to talk about in your group. First, what activities or clubs are you involved in? Like, how do you actually spend your time when you're not at church, when you're not just sitting at home? And a follow-up, why did you choose to be involved in those? There's a reason. There's a reason that you went from, man, I've heard about this sport or this instrument or this play or this school activity, to then saying, man, I want to be a part of that. So what activities or clubs are you involved in? Why are you involved in those? And then now shift it back to HSM or MSM or Northridge as a whole. How can you be involved? And how do you want to be involved? What skill sets, what do you have that you can contribute? And all of you have something you can contribute. So, hey, talk about those as a group. Love you so much. I'm so glad that we are getting to meet together in house parties, and we'll see you next week.